The Pistons play again tonight, but before we get into that, let's talk about Cade Cunningham again today, where we have a special guest today, Bryce Simon, who just did a film breakdown on Cade Cunningham's second game in the NBA. Should you be worried about him? And the Pistons offense. We're going to dive even further into the offense. I know we've talked about it a lot lately, but when it's that bad, historically bad, you have to continue to talk about it, figure out a solution at some point. We're going to talk about all of that on today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. We are now verified over there. Make sure you guys go follow me. Make sure you guys go check out the YouTube at Locked On Pistons. We're at about 400 subscribers. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Even if you guys don't want to check out the podcast on YouTube, you guys don't want to watch it over there, you like the podcast version, I don't blame you. Just go support the podcast over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an official community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about Cade Cunningham's second game, technically his first full game. Again, we're going to break it down even further. But on today's podcast, we are joined by a friend of the show. He's been on the show many, many times. He just had a breakdown today for Detroit Bad Boys, or yesterday when you guys listen to this. Make sure you guys go check it out. But we are joined by Bryce Simon. Bryce, thank you for joining the show again, man. You know we always have a lot of fun with you on the show. How you doing?
I'm good, Koo, man. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to talk Cade Cunningham, Pistons offense, and whatever else we fall into.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it then. So, like I mentioned, you had a big breakdown of Cade Cunningham's second game, but I'm technically calling it his first game because he did not have any kind of minutes restriction on him. He obviously shot 0 of 9. He didn't shoot the ball. He shot 0 of 9 from deep, but 2 of 12 overall, 2 of 14 overall. We were just talking about this with my fiance before we started recording the podcast. Detroit radio is already starting to hammer him. My fiance, just to give you guys a little insight, a little funny story. She goes to work today or last morning, and as soon as she gets there, one of the guys there who keeps up with a little bit of the sports, like, hey man, what's going on with Cade Cunningham? The radio's already ripping him to shreds. Why is he not playing good? So it's already one game in. They're already attacking him. So definitely not the way he wanted to open up. But Bryce, you broke down the film. You looked more intently, not just the shooting and the field goal percentage, but you looked at just about everything. Is there a reason to be worried about Cade Cunningham? Are you worried at all after one game? Did you like what you saw from him? What did you get away from the breakdown?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still seeing everything I wanted to see other than the shooting. And like I say in the article, and if you guys get a chance, go check it out at Detroit Bad Boys, Film Don't Lie, do all my stuff over there. But if this is who he is as a shooter, then yeah, he's a bust. Let's move on. Let's tank and let's go get the number 1 pick again. Because he's not going to work out. Now, I find it hard to believe that a guy shot his shooting splits, I believe 43% from the field and 40% from three last year at Oklahoma State, is going to continue shooting this poor. I just don't believe it. I think he's going to shoot it better. I think he's going to end up in the upper 30s, 40% from three, and he'll be fine there. But what I wanted to make light of is the other aspects of his game, because this is what we've talked about. Cade Cunningham, what makes him special is his all-around game. All the intangibles, his passing, his defense, which has been even better than what I thought. And I'll tell you, the thing that maybe surprised me the most, Koo, is he is able to create separation and advantages in one-on-one situations better than what I think a lot of people thought. So I'm still highly encouraged. If the shooting is still this bad in 20 games, then yeah, we have some cause for concern.
And I agree with you. Obviously, it's literally his first 2 games. He's coming off an ankle injury. We've talked about this in the last podcast. It's been a month or so since he played like legit basketball, and then that's going back into the offseason. So technically, we might be going back to summer league from when he last played like legit game action, since he was out majority of training camp and preseason due to that ankle injury. So he's getting his legs back. It's not a big deal. Something I wanted to point out, and we'll talk a little bit about the other stuff like you mentioned that you dove into in your film breakdown, but one of the things that I like from him, and Dwane Casey even mentioned it today in his media session, is that, one of the things that was worrisome in this last game, and we'll talk about the offense in general in the next segment, but, one of the things that was worrisome is that Saddiq Bey is like actively running away from open shots right now, and he's making shots tougher on him. It's like he's hesitating to take open shots. And it seems like a lot of players in the Pistons are doing that. And that speaks to a lack of confidence or losing confidence, etc. Something that I'd like from Cade is that it seems like he really never lost confidence, not at one point. On his 9th 3-point miss, on his first 3-point miss, at any time in between that, not one time did it look like he lacked confidence in his shot. He didn't hesitate one time. Anytime he touched it, he wanted to shoot it, he shot it instantly. It wasn't I'm scared. I don't know if I want to shoot this. I end up taking a bad shot, off-balance shot, because I contemplate what I wanted to do. Actually, I take that back. I think he had one when he did that. He had a fake. He tried to fake pass it on a drive. He ended up taking an awkward floater. I think he got caught in between what he wanted to do one time on one of those. But outside of that, he shot every three with confidence. Every shot that he took with confidence just wasn't dropping. I'm not worried about it. Dude's missed shots, especially if you've been gone for a month. He just needs to get his legs. I thought a lot of his shots were short. Especially he had I think a hook shot that was really short, a runner that was really short. And then a lot of his threes, I felt like hit front rim. A lot of them missed. He had one really bad miss, though, that hit all backboard. That one was pretty bad. But a lot of his shots, I feel like, just looked like he didn't have his legs. I'm not worried about it. But what else outside of the shooting? Like you said, you mentioned his defense, but what did you see from him as the like you mentioned, the initiator or creator with the ball in his hands? Did you saw something that people aren't really talking about?
I don't know if people aren't talking about it. It just surprised me because, all this talk was he wasn't going to be athletic enough and he's not Jalen Green and he's this low athlete for NBA standards. And that if that's true, then his handle must be really good. I thought he went by people and created advantages about any time he wanted. And I highlight off-ball situations where he does it and all these different things. But even on the ball, like almost just squaring guys up and attacking them one-on-one. And he did it against Giannis. And I know like people kind of called me out like, these are singular plays. Well, we only have 2 games. That's all I have to work with right now. But he squares Giannis up on the left wing. He blows by after 2 dribbles. He takes contact. And then because he's not a high riser, he doesn't try to yam on him. He goes to like a skilled, like little running hook shot floater type thing. And maybe people don't like that, but that's a skill. That's how he's going to have to finish. He got to the free throw line. He barely missed. So like I was very impressed and encouraged by that. But you know what I've taken the most heat on, which kind of surprised me? I called him a special passer, like distributor, and people do not like that. I've taken a lot of heat and had a lot of comments like, he's not a high-level passer yet. Like his assist-to-turnover ratio is this. And I was very taken back and surprised that was the thing they decided to point out they didn't like with the breakdown.
Yeah, because I think in college he had a really bad assist-to-turnover ratio in college. Yeah, so that if you're just looking at basic box score from his college, I see why people would think that. But even in that last game, I think Bryce would even say this as well. He had a few passes out there, and even in the first game, he had a few passes that were really just like when you see Cade do it, I guess people just say, "Oh yeah, normal pass," but you don't see normal passes people making those type of passes. Like he had one I tweeted out yesterday or 2 days ago. He had one. He worked a pick and roll with Isaiah Stewart, which, by the way, we'll talk about that in today's podcast as well. We're going to have to talk about that. I need to get what Bryce's opinion is on this. But they finally worked a pick and roll with Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart crashed down. Cade gave him a pump fake into the lane. And as soon as the corner guy came down a tag on the Stewart roll, he whipped a cross-corner pass. That was pretty. That's not a pass that anybody can make. And he had a few other ones, too, that were skip passes, drop-off passes to Isaiah Stewart. But, yeah, I think he's a tremendous passer. Having him and Killian in a starting lineup, I think is really going to keep defenses on their heels.
Just real quick, because you brought it up. That's one thing I tried to highlight, and I'm not sure if people really appreciate it. He has subtle ball and eye manipulation when he's a passer. So the same scenario you're talking about, Kelly Olynyk has a mismatch. I can't remember who it is on. And he puts the ball above his head and just gives a quick little pass fake, and the weak side defender, it gets him to take about 3 steps, whips the pass to Trey Lyles, and Trey Lyles bangs a 3. Like, those things are so subtle, but those are things not every player is doing and seeing and able to see that entire court and how it plays. And that's why I think he's going to be special as a creator for his teammates.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. We got a back-to-back coming up on Thursday and Friday. It's going to be interesting to see, does he play on the second end of the back-to-back? He's no longer on a minutes restriction, so I don't think he would get sat out on this back-to-back. But you don't know. The Pistons have been playing this really carefully. I'm going to assume that he plays in the second end of back-to-back, but who knows? When we come back, we're going to talk about the Pistons offense. We're going to dive a little bit further into it. We got some updated numbers. Something that I want to say before we even get into that, it seems like through 7 games, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys were able to draw this anyways, but with such a small sample size, the stats are going to fluctuate very heavily up and down, because it's just such a small sample size. So we're going to keep updating you guys on these stats as we talk about it as the podcast roll out, because the numbers have changed now. But before we get into any of that, let me tell you about some of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you about Rock Auto. You ever need a part for your car? Head to the store, go through a ton of confusing questioning just for one of the workers to tell you that they don't have the part that you're looking for. I know I have. That's why you should avoid all these problems. Rock with another one of our sponsors, rockauto.com. Find whatever part you're looking for on your computer or in your hand by using your phone at rockauto.com. Don't worry about having to create an account or making a membership. Just head over to rockauto.com and start shopping. Rockauto.com always offers the lowest and most reliable prices. Head over to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Then let me tell you about another one of our sponsors, BetOnline AG. We're back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, and congratulations to the World Series champions Braves, the NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all their amazing offers available for the 2021 season. And like I've told you guys, if you guys don't like betting on just sports, you have all kinds of things outside of sports, like awards, reality TV, things I didn't even know you could bet on. But you can do that with BetOnline AG. BetOnline is also the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So go check out BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Bryce, let's go ahead and dive into this offense a little bit. Do you have anything else that you'd want to say about Cade Cunningham before we move forward to the team's offense as a whole?
No, we can move on. I like I said, I just felt the need to do that. I don't know why. I think we all know that Cade's going to be fine, but I just felt like I needed to do this breakdown and make sure we still were appreciating all the aspects of his game, because I think that's going to be something that's going to be easy to do, is overlook and just box score watch with Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, and like you said, if this is the shooter he is, then yeah, he's a bust. But you're really going to be going out on a limb if you think this is the kind of shooter he is. His stroke looked absolutely smooth all summer. It looks smooth in his college career. Like, this is not. He just struggled tonight. I mean, last game. So it is what it is. He'll be fine, I think, shooting wise, hopefully. But yeah, watch the other stuff. Definitely just as important. But let's go ahead and move into the offense. So, Bryce, I've talked a lot about this offense for the past week or so since the season started, because it's just been so awful. It's literally, I want to say, close to historically bad, to be honest. The Pistons, it almost seems like an award when they cross over 90 points on offense, and we're in 2021. Okay, this is not like 2005 or anything. We're in 2021. It's like an award when the Pistons cross over 90 points. So, for example, they're last in the NBA in offensive rating at 95.8 points. The second worst team is OKC Thunder at 96.7. So they're just as bad, close to just as bad. But outside of that, there's a huge gap between them and the third worst. That's Houston at 99.3. And then everyone else is above 100. So basically, if you take out OKC and Detroit, just eliminate OKC, Detroit is about 5 points off every other team in the entire NBA in offensive rating. That is a massive gap. The Pistons are literally awful offensively. And Bryce, I've given my reasons for what I think is hurting the offense. I think obviously the main issue with the offense, and it's like obviously, is obviously the 3-point shooting. They just look at this one right here is what really makes me laugh. The Pistons are one of 3 teams to not even be making double-digit threes a game. It's like what's going on? It's so bad. They have moved themselves up into like the middle of the pack with 3-pointers attempted. They were towards the bottom, but they have worked themselves up to the middle of the pack, but their percentage hasn't gone up at all. They're shooting 26% from deep as a team. That's almost 4 points worse than the next worst team, OKC. So I think that right there is the main issue to the offense, obviously. Bryce, do you think that that's the main issue? Do you think there's something else that's the main issue? And obviously there's other things that we need to talk about, but just strictly a 3-point shooting. Do you think that's just at the core of the issues, and once that gets better, everything else will be fine?
I do think that's the core. Like, I think a lot of people at this point are like, oh, that's the cop-out answer. But I've said this before. I've said it in a breakdown. Like, at the end of the day, basketball is a make or miss game. And when you're not making shots, it affects everything. And we've talked about this. It affects your defense. It affects your confidence. It affects your energy, all of this stuff. And so I do think that's a core. Now, are there other little things that I think we should talk about and question and want to see? No doubt about it. And I think we're going to get into those things. Here's the point I want to make, or the question I want to ask. Everybody is real quick to blame Dwane Casey and his offense right now. I want to put yourself in the shoes of a coach right now. And if you were looking at this, would you not say to yourself a little bit like, what do you expect me to do until we start making shots? Like, yeah, I can go put a new offense together, but what's it matter, Koo, if they're not going to make shots at the end of it? So if I'm Dwane Casey, I'm saying, I don't know what you want me to do. When dudes start making shots, now I can start making adjustments and figuring things out. Until then, it doesn't really matter what I want to do. And maybe that's the coach in me, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like that answer or that take. But I can understand or see that point of until guys start making shots, there's nothing we can do anyway.
So I agree with that take to an extent. Obviously, actually not even to an extent. I think that's obviously correct. If guys are going to hit shots, there's nothing Dwane Casey can do. Dwane Casey can't make guys hit open shots. He can't make guys hit open layups. He can't make guys hit free throws. I brought this up in the last podcast. It wasn't just three-point shooting last game for the Pistons. They were missing open middies. They were missing layups. They were missing free throws. They shot 21 or 30 from the free throw line. Dwane Casey can't do nothing about that. So 100%, if the guys are just not going to miss or make shots, there's nothing Dwane Casey can do. And something I think that even supports this even further is the fact that it's not like, and me and Bryce talked about this last week, and it still holds true now. It's not like the majority of their three-point attempts are coming from like a few years ago when Stanley Johnson was taking the majority of the Pistons open threes. Like, yeah, of course, he's going to take a lot of open threes. It's not necessarily open threes that you want to be taking. The Pistons are getting open shots for Cade in the last game. They're getting open shots for Sadiq, Kelly Olynyk, Frank Jackson, who's just been, and Bryce, I'm sorry, I know you like Frank, but Frank
has been awful.
Yeah, he's been awful. But they're getting open shots for their guys who are supposed to be shooters. They're just not hitting. So once those guys start to hit more shots and get back to where they should be, I don't know if they will. I mean, you hope, but hopefully they start to trend back to where they usually have been. The offense will obviously look a lot better. But there is something I want to bring up. So first, let me just say this as well. We've talked about open threes, about the Pistons generating wide open threes or not. I just want to bring this up. You guys can take this however you guys want. I'm going to keep it an absolute stack with you guys. In order for me to give you guys an absolute exact answer, I would have to go through each 30 teams in the NBA, count up everyone's wide open and very open makes. I'm just not going to do all that. I'm sorry. I can't do all that. However, let's just go through this real quick. So the Pistons, if you look at NBA.com sorts out open shots into two different categories. They sort them out in wide open, which is 6+ feet, and just open, which is 4 to 6 feet. Both of those shots are good shots you're creating. So I don't really get why they separate them that bad. I feel like I should be able to pick both of them. But either way, let's move on. So if you look at wide open attempts, the Pistons are 10th in the NBA. But then if you go to just open, the Pistons are 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 22, 21. They're 20th. So they're in the bottom 10 in just open. Okay? So my thing is, I think it's reasonable to assume that if the Pistons are middle of the pack in just three-point attempts, they're 10th in the league in wide open attempts, but bottom 10 in open attempts. They probably are somewhere in the middle of the league in just creating open looks in general. Bryce, would you think that's a good takeaway to assume here based off of that?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So I would say, so the reason why I bring that up is the argument for Dwane Casey. And again, I want to make sure everyone understands this. I'm not saying fire Dwane Casey. I'm not saying he's awful or he's just putrid or something. That's not what I'm saying. I agree that the Pistons need to make open shots like that, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Dwane Casey can't change that. However, the idea, I think, that's been throwing around by fans and some guys who cover the team and follow the team, etc., that the Pistons are just creating amazing open looks and they're just towards the top of the league and open looks, blah, blah, and they're just not hitting them. I don't know if we can say that anymore, that that's true, because it looks like that they're around middle of the pack. So they're not My point is they're not like exceptional and elite at creating open shots. They seem like they're just okay at it. They're average. It seems like they're right around average at it, maybe above average, and they're just poor at hitting any of them. So that's when I take you to my next point. If the Pistons are struggling this bad to hit shots in the half court, which I think most people would agree that most of their offense is coming from right now, is the half court. I don't get why, for a team this young and a team of guys who, especially in Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham, who like to push in transition, why you're not playing a little bit faster. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes zero sense to me why you're doing it. And this is an argument that people have brought up against me. I brought this up in the last podcast as well. I see we're running a little bit over for the podcast right now. We will carry this argument over into the third segment. We can keep going. But it doesn't make any sense to me why the Pistons aren't playing a little bit faster. So if you just go and look at their pace, the Pistons are currently 24th in the NBA in pace. And I don't get it. So if you look at a team, another team that's young, like Detroit, and a team full of young prospects, in the Houston Rockets, they're first in the NBA in pace. It helps you get easier buckets when you can't score in the half court. You don't have guys who are capable to create one-on-one advantages or create for themselves and others in the half court. Playing a little bit faster helps you attack defenses while they're scrambling. And it's not just about being a better athlete and beating guys up and down the court or something, because I know that's what people usually think about when you say that. That's not it. You can push in transition and get easy looks from beyond the arc just in other areas simply by attacking a defense when they're not set yet. And I don't feel like the Pistons do that at all. And I feel like we've talked about the defensive rebounding percentage, which is not that bad. We've talked about how the Pistons force a lot of turnovers. So it seems like that's just a scheme. It's part of the scheme that Dwane Casey wants. He wants to play slower. That seems like all we can point to right now. And that's my biggest area of critique. I completely disagree with that. There's actually one other thing I disagree with, but we'll talk about that in the next segment. But I'll let you respond to that, Bryce, if you want, or we can go to the next segment and have a full-on uninterrupted back and forth if you want.
Yeah. I'll catch it on the other side.
Okay, sounds good. So when we come back, Bryce will respond to that, and we'll spend probably another 10 minutes talking about everything else that we have dove into about the offense, and we would like to see change or not see change. But that's when we come back. But first, let me tell you about one of our sponsors, McDonald's. This episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect. A place where classmates can come meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. McFlurries, they're amazing. They're one of my favorite things at McDonald's. You have to get one if you go there. Absolutely have to. But win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's the place you can always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. I've told you guys this many of times. Me and my fiance, Megan, we went on a trip to Chicago a few weeks ago, and the first thing we did before we set up on the highway was stop at McDonald's and get them sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins. They set us on a great day. I felt so much better afterwards. Those sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins, man, it just is something different. So if you are going on a long road trip, you're going on a little vacation, you should be stopping at McDonald's, and I suggest you guys go check out the sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffins. So make sure you guys go check out McDonald's. Go ahead to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. All right, Bryce. So
I love that you have to do that.
I loved it at first, but now I feel like it's a little cringe every time I sing the jingle. Every time it gets a little bit more cringe each time. So let's go ahead. I'll give you the carpet. I'll give you the whole floor. Go ahead and respond to everything I said.
Yeah. So I just want to. Yeah, real quick, I'm going to go back to my point. So you kind of brought this up. The counter to me, what I was saying about what is Dwane Casey supposed to do? One thing is, like you said, are they the shots we want? Because if they're not coming from the guys we want them to come from, if they're not coming, in the spots and off screen, whatever the scenario is, then I understand it. I understand the argument. If you're saying, no, these aren't good quality shots for our players. Okay. And the other counter to that is maybe we stop shooting so many threes and we attack the basket. Okay, so I can understand that as well. So I see both sides of it. I want to make sure people understand that. But you're bringing up the transition thing, which I agree with. But now this kind of comes to the heart of something I've thought about the last couple of days. Maybe we don't have the right personnel to fit. What are we supposed to do? Is it supposed to be Dwane Casey fits and changes all of his stuff to fit the personnel, or should it be the other way around? Because to me, Dwane Casey doesn't want an up and down fast break team. And he wants like this half court isolation, free flowing, whatever offense. And so do we just have all the wrong personnel, or does it matter? Like, are we too early in the rebuild for it to matter? And then we're going to get the product we get. I don't know. I've just been thinking about that recently. Like, maybe it's not the right players to fit the system. And so who's supposed to change now?
That's fair. I think the team, everyone needs to see a little bit more of a sample size to completely answer that question. However, I think that's a fair question. But then I also think the next question someone would throw right back at you and anyone else is that, well, obviously this system isn't working either. Shooting this many threes just not making obviously isn't working either. So it's like, what is going to work? And everyone's just like searching for answers. And I think that's where we're at right now with a team this poor on offense. It's really bad. You're searching for answers everywhere, trying to find a way to make it easier on the players. And for me, I feel like it's playing a little bit faster. I don't think they should be like top 10 or anything in pace, but I definitely don't think they should be damn near bottom 5 in pace. I think that's ridiculous for the team. But I think maybe that's a way for Dwane Casey. I think probably if the explanation you would get from Dwane Casey, if you sat him in a room and talked to him about it, would be that's his way of trying to limit turnovers with a young team that's inexperienced. And that would make sense. However, when your offense is playing this poorly in the half court, I think it's probably worth the risk to try to play a little bit faster with young guys. That's where I'm at with it, just because of how poorly the half court offense has been able to play. But the next thing, actually, Bryce, do you have something else you wanted to say that before I move on?
Well, I just wanted to ask you, so like, what do you like? Do you think Dwane Casey should be the one to change his philosophy? Because obviously he's been in the NBA for a long time. He's been successful. And I know it's easy for people to say the coach should change to his players. And I get it. I understand it. Trust me. I coach at a level where you don't get to recruit your kids. You get the kids that you get. And so you do have to. But do you think Dwane Casey should really be just going out of his way to change his system to this young core? Or is he trying to turn these players into the type of players that fit his system? Like, what do you think the answer is, or what should be happening?
Bryce is trying to get me in trouble. So my answer to this would be 100% Dwane Casey. And this is my opinion of every coach. I think every coach should be adjusting his system to the personnel that he has. Better to get to use the strengths of his team. But even more specifically, before we move on to Dwane Casey, if you talk to Toronto people, and this was said before the Pistons hired him, when it was said that they were going to be interviewing him as part of the hiring process. If you talk to Toronto people who cover the team, if you talk to Toronto fans, they will tell you this is something that's not new with Dwane Casey. This is something that he has done for years. If you go back to Toronto days, I think even casuals who don't really keep up with the NBA as much, but watch like the sports debate shows, even they will know, because in the season that Toronto was expected to actually be able to beat LeBron, I think it was his last year in 2018. I believe that was the year Dwane Casey won Coach of the Year, and they were actually like I think they were at the top of the Eastern Conference. The reason why everyone was like, okay, this is a different Raptors team, is because throughout the regular season, they had better ball movement. They were playing faster. They were playing more as a team. They weren't playing in the half court with isolation basketball and just staying around, which is what they had done for 8 years and why they shrunk in the playoffs. Because once you get there, if that's the kind of basketball you're playing, if the other team just simply has better isolation players than you, you're going to lose. And that's usually what it broken down to. That last season, they thought it was different. Playoffs come around, they go right back to isolation basketball. They get swept by LeBron. So it's like, it's who Dwane Casey is, basically. This is his system. This is how he wants to coach. I'm not an NBA coach. I'm not one to tell him he shouldn't be doing it, but I think we've had enough sample size of Dwane Casey to know this is just how he coaches. This is the way his offense is. He's not changing it, and that's just how it's going to roll. So,
okay, so
that would be my answer to you. That would be it.
I'm going to ask a question that could possibly get us in more trouble here. Then, so as you say that, my thought process is then Dwane Casey isn't going to be the coach of this team in 5 years, because Troy Weaver is building a roster that's not suited to what he does. If he's this stuck in the mud in what he does, then and Troy Weaver thought he was going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years, he would have drafted Jalen Green, because Jalen Green fits that system much better than Cade Cunningham does, right? Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
And a lot of the other moves don't make sense. So like listen, people are going to take this and the headlines are going to be, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to like connect dots, and maybe I'm way out there, but to me, this roster does not hit what he does as a coach then. And so it only makes sense that in 5 to 10 years, he won't be the guy coaching him.
So again, Bryce is trying to get me in trouble.
I'm not trying. I'm just talking through the scenario. I'm really not trying to have a hot take. It's just kind of coming off the dome.
I'm sitting here laughing because I'm trying to watch what I say here. I would simply say to you, you are correct.
Okay.
That I would be shocked if Dwane Casey is the coach of this team in 2023. I think they gave him that 2-year extension. I think his last season will be the 2022-2023 season.
And
I think right then, I think they have him to be a part. I think he is somewhat right now. I think people are questioning it, but I said this in the summer. I think he was the perfect coach for this era of what they need, development wise. Guys who are going to play hard for him, learn the way of the NBA, learn how to be young men in the league, develop how to be professionals, etc. He's perfect for that. But once you take that next step, I would be lying to you guys if I would be lying to you guys if I said I didn't have serious doubts about him being the coach for that next step. But
well, then great. Then I'm all cool with it. If that's what he's there is to develop that side of these kids' game, then great. Let him do that, and we'll deal with this other side that's not necessarily pretty and beautiful and aesthetically pleasing to watch. If we're looking for the long end game, which is what is far more important. And then knowing that we'll eventually possibly get a coach, maybe Casey's ready to retire by then. Maybe this is all part of the plan. We don't know what's being talked about behind closed doors. Maybe Casey knows all of this, but his role is to do this and kind of develop that side of their game right now. And then the next guy can bring in a system that fits their games better. And if that's the plan, then I'm on board. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and that brings up another thing that, they're rebuilding right now. So how much of this really does matter? Why is everyone so mad and so up in arms about it? So I get all that as well. But, I just want to make sure I say this at the end of the podcast. Now, after having those last 3 minutes of what I said, I just want to make sure I say this. I am not advocating for Dwane Casey to be fired. I'm not saying he should be fired. I'm not saying he's at fault of anything. The players have to hit open threes. I'm simply saying that maybe you could try and make it a little easier on guys. That's all I'm saying. Don't take my words and get me in trouble. And
I can't wait for the ats tomorrow on Twitter. It's going to be a fun day.
No, I'm worried about more than the ats. Trust me. I'm worried about people a little bit with higher powers than that. But before we end the podcast, Bryce, I got to ask you this quick question. Real quick. Are you worried about Isaiah Stewart at all as the starting center right now?
I'm questioning or wondering about his long-term potential as a starting 5-man in the NBA. And if he may not be better suited. My former host, Vlad Moldavanu, has said from the beginning he thought he was a perfect backup big in the NBA. And if that's what he ends up being, then great. I still think it's a great selection, and he ends up being a great part of this organization. But I think it's fair to kind of wonder if maybe that's the role he's going to settle into as a third big on a good team.
All right, we'll end the podcast. I just want to say to you guys real quick. I'm going to get closer to the microphone and say this. I see all you guys now going around and saying, "Oh, the Pistons probably should have a pick and roll guy. They need a rim runner. They need an athletic guy. They need a guy who's good in the pick and roll." And I just want to say that was literally my entire marketing campaign, the entire offseason. I was begging for that all offseason. I'm glad to see you guys coming around to it. But we can end it there. Thank you, Bryce, for coming on, man. Appreciate it. It's always a lot of fun, man. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us. Go check out Bryce at Motor City Hoops. Go check out his podcast. Go check out his work over at Detroit Bad Boys as well. Really, he's a great follow. Great at breaking down film. You guys know he wouldn't be on here all the time as he is if I didn't think he was great at what he does. So make sure you guys go check out all of his stuff. I appreciate him coming on it all the time. But yeah, go check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that thumbs up down below. Hit the subscribe button. If you're watching or listening to this on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review down below. I appreciate you guys for listening and making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. And make sure you guys go check out Josh Lloyd of Fantasy Basketball, Locked On Fantasy Basketball, to get all your insights and tips into fantasy basketball, who to start, who to pick up, all that kind of things. I appreciate you guys for listening. Enjoy the game tonight. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody, and go Pistons.